So I'll open the Architectural Board review for November 1st, 2021. First item of the agenda is the roll call.
All right, thank you. I can go ahead and take roll call, and I'll start with Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Noon.
Here.
Board Member Olson. Board Member Olson.
Mr. Olson, you're muted. You're still muted.
Here.
Thank you. And Board Member Whalen and Chair Moore will be absent today, and we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Second item of business is general public comment. Any member of the public may address the board up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda. If you would follow the instructions on the screen and further the staff in order to do so.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six and board members. At this time, I don't see that any members of the public have joined the webinar, or at least they have not raised their hand indicating they'd like to speak on any general public comments. Mary, have we received any general public correspondence to items that are not on today's agenda?
Thank you, Christina, and board members. We did not receive any general written correspondence for today's agenda. Thank you.
Okay, that being the case, we'll close the general public comment and move on to the next item of business, which is the approval of the minutes for Architectural Board meeting of October 18th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
I move we accept these as presented.
Second.
First by Olson, second by Black. Any discussion? If not, let's take a vote.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
And Board Member Olson.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item of agenda is the approval of the consent calendar for October 25th and November 1st. And we have those up on the board and have them reviewed first.
I move we accept these minutes of the October 25th consent meeting as presented.
I'll second that.
At least, can we scroll down and see the can we scroll down? Okay, thank you. All right, scroll down further, please. Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? If not, let's take a vote.
All right, I'll start with Vice Chair Six. Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
And Board Member Olson.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the minutes for November 1st today.
Vice Chair Six, would you like me to read these minutes in since they were just, it just happened an hour ago? Because I don't think the board members have had a chance to review them.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Today's consent calendar was reviewed by Vice Chair Six and Board Member Anderson. The first item was 102 East Yananali Street. It received project design and final approval with a couple conditions and a comment. You can read the first condition here was the project shall return to consent for review after final approval for the following items. The condition to provide more information on the precise heights, including the isolation and base for the equipment and equipment screen. And B, the condition to provide a separate landscape indication of the new hedge along the frontage property lines. The material and spacing of the new hedge shall screen the mechanical equipment. And 2, the board finds the compatibility analysis findings have generally been met per the ordinance. And the second item.
Ms. McGuire, I have a correction to that. Of the motion on that first one, the screen is usually mechanically. The material spacing hedge is to replace the existing inadequate hedge along the line.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
thank you.
sorry. Yes, okay, I'm sorry, I flipped it. Yes, this is correct. So the material and spacing of the new mechanical screen. Oh, wait a minute, I'm mixed up here. Oh, it's screening the transformer. That's what's confusing me. So say mechanical equipment to transformer.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Six. We'll note that. And the second item that was reviewed today was 3805 State Street, was a wireless project, and it received an indefinite continuance back to the consent calendar with a comment to provide another solution that finds a way to reduce and minimize the additional bulk and detailing of the tower, and to maintain the slender vertical original design of the tower, or find an alternative location for the equipment.
Great. Do I have a maker of a motion?
I move we accept these minutes as presented with your one correction.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? If not, let's take a vote.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
and Board Member Olson.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is any announcements, requests by applicants for continuances, withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. There are several staff announcements today. The first one is that Board Member Whalen and Chair Moore will be absent at today's hearing. So Vice Chair Six will be leading the hearing today. The second item is that item 2 on today's agenda, 36 East Montecito Street. 36 East Montecito Street has asked for a postponement till the November 29th, 2021 ABR hearing. And the items 3 and 4, staff reached out to them, and because of that postponement, we are able to hear those items 15 minutes early. That's within the threshold of the Brown Act where they allow them. So item 3 will be heard today at 5:30, and 4:30, and item 4 will be heard today at 5:30.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. Any subcommittee reports? Hearing no one.
Vice Chair Six?
Yes. Hello?
Good afternoon,
Oh,
Vice Chair. Hi. Good afternoon, board members. I wanted to just come on and make an announcement that Christina will be leaving the city at the end of the week. So she has taken a position with the city of Goleta as an associate planner. And this will be her last meeting with you and her last week with us. And so we're very sad to see her leave, but we're very happy for her new endeavor and promotion. I do also want to announce that Will Russell, I think he's on, if he could click on so we could see his face. Will Russell will take over the ABR lead staffing. He has been with the city since 2019, and most of the time with design review. He's staffed the sign committee and is currently an assistant planner with zoning. So he'll be coming back to design review to staff your committee or your board, excuse me. So I wanted to make that announcement and also thank Christina for her hard work and diligence, and we're gonna miss her. And
absolutely.
also welcome Will.
I would like to add something to that, Christina. Your happy face and congenial demeanor has been very much appreciated, and it's been excellent to work with you. Thank you for your help.
Absolutely superb job. We will miss you dearly. And welcome, Mr. Russell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I think we said that there was no subcommittee reports. So we will move on to our first application is number 1 for 500 James Fowler Road. This is a new item, concept review. The project consists of a reconfiguration of the south field area of the airport, south of the terminal building, to accommodate 3 new remain overnight parking spaces for large commercial aircraft. A large existing hangar and existing parking lot is proposed to be demolished and the resulting area repaved to expand the existing rental car ready return parking area toward the east. New parking lot landscape planter islands, a new driveway from the passenger drop-off lanes to the rental car parking lot, and new storm water control measures will be constructed associated with the new parking lot. Existing pavement will remain on the RON parking area as it was originally designed to handle aircraft loads. And the existing parking lot lighting in the rental car parking lot will be relocated to the proposed rental car area. A new perimeter security fence will be constructed between the rental car parking lot and the airport operations area, AOA. The project requires planning commission approval of a coastal development permit. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility findings and the airport design guidelines. So do we have our applicant or do we have staff to assist us on this item?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. We indeed do have some staff. Tony Bauman is the case planner for this project, so I'd like to introduce Tony. And then after Tony has concluded his staff presentation, the applicant is also here and ready for their presentation. Thank you.
Thank
Hi,
you.
good afternoon, Chair Six and board members. This, as you just read, it requires planning commission review. So the land development team staff members have reviewed the application and deemed it to be complete with one outstanding item, and that is to go to the ABR and obtain favorable comments. So that's what the project is here for. You can consider the project in the context of the project compatibility findings, and if you find it generally acceptable, you could continue it to the Planning Commission for review of the CDP. Otherwise, if you'd like to see some changes, you could continue it back to the ABR. I think that's it. I'll be standing by for questions if you have any. Thank
Mr.
you.
Baumann, Mr. Baumann, before we introduce the applicant, the reason the planning commission will be reviewing this and what will their focuses be?
Just the consistency with coastal policies to approve a coastal development permit. Pretty much the entire airport property is in the appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone, so it doesn't take a very large project scope to require a coastal development permit. The relevant policies that the ABR would provide valuable input are on visual resources. So as long as you review just for aesthetics like you normally do for projects, that would cover that base as far as providing input to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
And that agenda mentioned airport design guidelines. I mean, in a nutshell, the projects at the airport are supposed to be consistent with El Pueblo Viejo guidelines, but here we're not really talking about architecture, just basically landscaping of the parking lot.
All right.
That's the
And
gist.
shall our motion include a preliminary review of the compatibility analysis?
That's always helpful, particularly if you're continuing it to the Planning Commission. That way, the applicant has those comments to hang their hat on when it returns to the ABR that you've already considered to be consistent with those findings, but.
In a preliminary level.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, Mr. Bowman. Do we have our applicant?
Good
Or
afternoon,
Mr.
board members.
Go ahead.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. My name is Jake Horan. Nice to meet you.
Okay, if you could notice the 15-minute timer, I'd appreciate you keeping your presentation to that.
Yes, sir. On that note, I do have a very long, elaborate presentation. However, I think that a better alternative might be the plans along with some pictures that maybe I should show the team. And maybe I can answer any questions on top of that. I also have my supervisor, Brad Cleansing, here on the line if you have any questions for him as well. So
Right.
is there a way that I can share screen?
Mr. Haran, we do not allow share screen on public hearings. So the items that you have access to are the items that you've submitted in Excel, the photos and the project plans.
Okay, no problem. We can go off these plans. So like,
And then, oh, pardon, you just give a verbal cue and we have Mr. Bolton who's running as our plans manager today. If you need zoom in or out or you need him to go back or different things, he's really good at that.
great, thank you. Okay, Mr. Bowman, would you mind please going to the second sheet? The third sheet, please. Great, thank you. So just to the north of these boundary lines is our airport terminal. As you can see, that little curvy road right there, that's called our Terminal Loop Road. One major portion of this project is to increase the size of our rental car parking lot. Currently, it's in a kind of a funny zone, and it's kind of sticking out into this first aircraft parking spot off to the left. And the goal is to rotate that and expand to about, I think, close to 160 spots, where currently it's, I think, about 100. These 3 aircraft parking spots, those are called remain overnight, as Vice Chair Six said. Those are for aircraft parking spots. There's going to be a gate which separates that parking lot from these 3 aircraft spots. And that will be with a TSA fence that is 8 foot tall, along with double V barbed wire. This little gray area of the parking lot, as you can see, that is actually permeable concrete. And there is a path. There are 2 paths. One which goes along the street to this parking lot, and then another one that goes right through this parking lot. And Mr. Bowman, can I please have the next slide? Thank you, sir. As you can see on the south end of the terminal, we have that path which enters this parking lot, and that is where people are going to be able to pick up their rental cars and also drop off their rental cars. Mr. Bowman, can I please have the next slide? Thank you, sir. Now, as you get towards the south end of this parking lot, we are reconfiguring this tiny little lot in between this Atlantic building and that Surf Air and Spitfire Aviation building. That'll be reconfigured, and it'll also be given 2 ADA spaces as well. It will also be connecting full length this all the way to this parking lot. So this parking lot will have a full length path all the way down to the terminal. Next slide, please. This is the overview of what will be replaced. And that big white box right there in the middle of the screen, that's something called Hangar 5. That is an old World War II adopted hangar, and it will be demolished. Those gray rectangular boxes, those are our islands, which we will be cutting out and installing for the final product. Next slide, please, sir. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is our current condition of what our rental car parking lot fence is, and it is going to be demolished. It's also worth noting that some of these current islands, they will be removed, that you can see within the parking lot, those gray hatched.
Mr. Heron, it would help if you concentrated on those aesthetic things that will be, ultimately part of the visual impact of the project, if you could, because that's what we're interested in.
I see. Sure. I took some pictures of the lights that will be placed here on the final product, and it's important to note that they will be recycled. So the green lights that we have at the airport now, they will be there at the final product and the final design. Also, the aesthetics, it's important to say that there'll be a 8 foot tall black fence with double V barbed wire on top.
Okay. Want to show those on the plans?
It does.
Point what's on the plans?
It should be on the back sheet.
Well, we can go through the plans also to see where it's located, but yeah, we can go here. Great, thank you.
Great. So now you can see that this dimension off to the right here is 8 foot tall, and that's at the bottom of your double V barbed wire. That double V barbed wire adds about a foot. And there's going to be that black, almost like that tennis court mesh that goes throughout this fence, so that people on the public side cannot pass any I guess you could say, anything relatively illegal onto the people getting onto those planes and those RON spots.
Hey, can we get back to the plan to show the location of this fence and also the landscaping areas? And the landscape materials of those areas.
Mr. Six, do you see this little, it's hard to show you without my mouse, but exactly right there, there's a fence. There's going to be some black mesh tennis court mesh all along that entire fence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that, do you have an overall photo of the extent of that?
An overall
A
photo
plan
of it?
of that?
No, sir, I don't think we do.
Okay.
And Mr. Six, what was your question about the vegetation?
Well, we're very interested to seeing how these areas are planted, what the material is, what kind of vegetation materials, what kind of plants and so forth are there. Do you have a landscape plan?
I think we do have a landscape plan. However, I don't know if it's attached to these plans. Brad, do you by chance know?
No, I'm looking through it right now.
I believe it's the last 2 sheets, Richard.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, last 2 sheets.
You want to take us through that?
Yes, sir. I can't really read so much that legend, so I might have to pull it up on my side. However, they will be vegetated islands. And that little L piece up in the corner there, that is going to be a swale as well. And there will be. Is there any questions on this?
Are you complete with your presentation then?
So I guess aesthetically, I'm finished with the presentation.
All righty. Then,
Vice Chair Six, if
Yeah.
I could jump.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, excuse me, thank you. The photos, do you have some photos that you can go through?
Regarding the vegetation, no, sir, I cannot. However, I can.
Just the general area to give us a sense, just all the photos you have. From street side,
General area.
you have,
I'm sorry, I don't
Yes.
understand.
you have street side photos and from Moffett, or is this the you have? You have other photos of the area from the ground. There you go. Okay. Can you go through these and explain them, please?
Sure. On the left side of this slide, we have our west side of our current rental car facility. As you can see, that's our 8-foot fence with that double V barbed wire on top.
Mm-hmm.
That will not be open to the public. That is our current commercial terminal apron. Both of these slides are on the commercial terminal apron side. Next slide, please. This is the passenger terminal loop road, and this is currently looking at that hangar 5 to be demolished, and also the current rental car layout. Next slide, please. This is the exit of the terminal loop road, and this will be remaining the same. Next slide, please. This is the AOA side of the project as well. And currently where this picture is taken, this pavement will remain untouched, and that fence line will be rotated. Next slide, please. That hangar on top, that's the one to be demolished. Next slide, please. This pavement will remain untouched as well up until that fence line comes through and then it turns into rental car parking lot. And that is again underneath the hangar to be demolished. Next slide, please. This fence is, the location of this picture is in between that Atlantic building and that Surf Air building. And this is the parking lot, the little parking lot that's going to be reconfigured, however, opened up. So this fence line will be removed. And that is actually the tennis court mesh that I was talking about earlier. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is probably the most southern extent of the project, and as you can see, it's on the AOA side, away from the public eye. And this where the photographer is standing in this photo, this will remain untouched pavement. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions?
First, before we do that, Mr. Heron, we'll open public comment. Thank you for your presentation.
You, sir.
And if there's anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this item, please follow the screen and further guided by the staff.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. If there are any members of the public that would like to speak on this item, please click on the raise lower your hand button, and staff will be sure to give you 2 minutes to speak. I don't see that anybody has raised their hand indicating they would like to speak. Mary, have we received any written public correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Christina, and board members. We have not received any written correspondence for this item. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will close the public comment portion and bring it back to the board for questions. If the board members would bring their screens up and the applicants turn their screens off so we have room. Thank you. So anybody have questions on this?
I'm hoping that Mr. Black will start off on the landscaping plan, because I have some questions, but I kind of think that we should hear what Mr. Black has to say first. If you have anything to say, Mr. Black.
I do.
Well, questions first. Do you have any questions, Mr. Black?
I have no questions at this time.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes.
I guess we can have applicants come up really quick. There's a detail on one of your sheets that has a transition between this new permeable concrete and the existing concrete. And I was just curious if that delineation is going to be very visible, or if both concretes are going to look similar. And I think it's on sheet. What sheet is this? I don't see a sheet number. Oh, detail sheet 2.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I really wish that I had my consultant on the line right now. But what we were proposing to do with Creeks was to put a trench in right at that threshold to collect all that extra debris.
Okay. Okay. So some sort
Board
of
Member Anderson, if I can speak to that as well. It's going to look like a concrete collar with a French drain or a trench drain along the perimeter of that permeable concrete.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Could we, I have a question, Mr. Six.
Olson, Mr. Olson.
Could we go back to the landscape plan? And you had mentioned there were 2 sheets of landscape plan. Have we seen the second sheet yet? Okay,
That's
thank
it.
you. And we can start with this one. I'm not sure what's coming out and what's going in. I'm having a little trouble reading that plan. So on this particular plan, are all those that are shown in the middle left-hand side, all those are added landscaping?
Mr. Herron?
Yes, sir, they are. Currently, that's all tarmac.
All right. And are you, as to the, regarding this particular landscape plan, are you removing any landscaping that would be, should be noted here?
Yes, sir.
You are not, is that what you said?
Correct.
All right, could we go to the landscape plan number 1? So I'm sorry to delay this process. I'm just having a little trouble understanding the plan. So
No,
in this,
this is your time.
all right. So is it true that the new, everything that you're adding is in this L-shaped piece on the upper left-hand side of the site plan?
No, sir. Do you see these islands down here towards the bottom of this plan?
Okay, all those are,
Installed
great.
and on top
All
of
right.
that, they will be vegetated.
all right. And the removals are which areas?
There is a sliver to be removed from this L piece in order to allow for the entrance exit.
That's all you're removing. So everything we're looking at in essentially here is, that is, it appears to be landscaping, is in fact new landscaping.
Everything shown here is new. There might be a slight amount down here on that path as you exit the terminal. There might be a little bit of brush, but I'm sure it's noted. It's a little hard to see the font or the text here on the screen.
Okay, great. That
There is some
answers my question.
You can see.
That answers my question about landscaping. I have one more question about the fence. So you were saying that you're using a tennis court mesh fence, and does tennis court mesh fence allow the use of slats or panels?
Sir, I think the main request was that from our patrol. And that's because you might be able to still slide things through those slats, and the mesh is semi-foolproof if it goes from floor to the top.
So where the mesh is existing, which I believe some of the pictures showed, which obscures the view into that area, that will not be mesh of that sort, or slats of that sort, or panels will not be used on the new tennis court mesh. Is that true?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time, please?
Yeah, maybe I can say it more clearly this time. So this mesh that we're now looking at on the screen exists, and it will no longer exist because you're using a different kind of mesh. Is that correct?
This mesh right here, it was not intended to inhibit anybody from passing anything to passengers from the other from the other side. This, I think, might have just been some debris screen and potentially some probably just debris screen. However, when you get closer to those RON spaces from that rental car parking lot, that's going directly from public side to commercial side, and that's what we're really trying to avoid is any passing of knives, lighters, etc.
So I'm trying to determine the visual impact of the screen and the mesh and to try to get clear on that point. And I think you're saying that this slats or panels will not be used on the new fencing.
That's correct.
And so the visual impact is that before we could see the slats or the, we will not be able to see those anymore. We'll be able to see through the fence where we couldn't see through it before.
Off to the left of the screen, you can kind of see through this mesh screen.
Right.
However, that's probably indicative of how it will be in the future.
Okay, great. I think you've answered my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Herron, to follow up with Mr. Olson's questions. Your number one, you've shown us photos of a tennis screen that allows passage of contraband. You will have a new material that you will screen these fences with?
No, sir, I want to clarify the purpose of this screen, which goes over the fence, is to prevent any passing of illegal.
Understand, but the photos we have, is that the exact material that you're going to have, or are you going to have another type of material?
I think that's the same material. However, it will go from the floor to the top, where that one, I think it went about.
Okay. So it's just the area, it will continue down to the ground, but it's
Correct.
the same material and color.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And to, further, is this double arm barbed wire fence existing in other areas of the terminal remote from this?
That is a regulation by the TSA, and it has to be double V barbed wire. And there's also a standard where it has to hold so much weight if somebody were to try to scale it.
Okay, so we're by TSA, we're given this product as is.
Correct. I don't think we're given too many options with that double V barbed wire.
All right. And then I noticed that if we could go to one of the overall plans. Yeah, this is good. On the very lower left-hand corner, there is a solid wall at the existing gate entry, just where people cross to get to the car rental. There's a solid wall that runs up and down the sheet there. You know where I'm referring to?
Yes, Mr. Six, I do. We call that the Sallyport wall because that little empty area is where we accept deliveries into the terminal, and that's our Sally.
Now you're adding that wall was, the top of that wall was unencumbered, and you're adding a double arm barbed wire on top of that?
We are, because due to the location of that new rental car fence, it turns that at least a portion of that Sallyport wall into something called our AOA fence.
Okay, so the new barbed wire will only go down to down sheet to the proposed fence, and then then it is no longer, correct? It won't continue further down sheet. You know what I'm saying? That wall, that Sallyport wall intersects the new proposed fence.
Correct.
I understand. So north of that section would be the double arm barbed wire. South of it would the double arm barbed wire continue?
Correct, yes. So it will be, the full
And
length of the Sallyport wall will be a double V barbed wire on top.
And so it's enclosing something, huh? It returns to somewhere where it's needed.
Yes, sir. So it'll make a turn, for the sake of conversation, let's call up north. It'll go full length, north and south of the Sallyport wall, and then it'll turn right where the AOA fence picks up.
Okay. Then as long as we're here in the landscape, you stated that all the plantings that we see here are new, but is it not that the diagonal cross hatching is existing landscape to remain along Moffett Place frontage and yeah, and also on the those three areas are going to be existing to remain, correct?
Correct, they are there right now. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Those are my questions. So let's
I have another question.
yes, Black.
Sort of a general landscape question. So this wall that you were talking about, do we know what that looks like? I mean, what is the material and how high is it? And
Yes,
Is
sir,
it-
we do. And
is it
Mr.
masonry?
Blackwell,
What is
it's a stucco wall, and it's about currently 8.5 feet tall. And
Okay.
it kind of ends right at our AOA gate. That's why it's pretty important for us to kind of transmute that wall into an AOA fence as well, because somebody could absolutely scale that wall and be considered within our boundaries.
So the wall is existing, it's not new, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one other question. Have you been advised in terms of the height limit of any trees that you may be installing in terms of, I know when I did some work out there some time ago, there's restrictions on height, you know, for, as it has to do with the airport and what have you? Are
I
you
don't
aware?
have on any height restrictions for those local trees? No, not yet, sir.
I'm sorry, you're not aware of it, or there are no restrictions?
I am very aware because we have some virtual ceilings that we have to obviously worry about in case plans go awry or whatnot.
And so all the trees that you're proposing here are, meet those criteria then as far as height restriction?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then what is the restriction? What is the height?
It's going to depend. It's funny. It's going to depending on how far away you are from that runway.
Okay,
So it's going to be variable. As you can see, on Hollister, we have varying height telephone poles and some light poles, and it's going to follow that same logic. The farther you get away from that runway, the taller you can be.
okay, those are my only questions.
I have another question.
Mr. Olson.
Do you have a picture of the existing landscaping that this particular landscape plan shows?
Mr. Bowman, would you mind? Thank you, sir. Actually, this might work. This one down here at the bottom, that is the beginning of that L piece.
Uh-huh.
That's that perspective from. And then, Mr. Bowman, could you go back maybe one or two more?
Location C, that one.
Here we are. Here's another good location. And off to the left of this picture, that's the other piece of your L piece.
Uh-huh. So then, as to any areas of this existing landscaping that you're not changing? Should there be dying or plants that need to be replaced? Are you giving any attention to that?
No, sir, we haven't paid too much attention to dying plants out there.
Or, okay,
I think you're sneaking into comments, Mr. Olson.
That's right.
okay, then I'll wait with my comments.
I have a couple other questions, if I may. This is a dumb question, but I didn't see, or was there a landscape plan in this set?
Sir, did you ask if there was a landscape plan?
You're intending to irrigate these, I hope.
Yes, sir.
There's no irrigation plan.
This is just concept review, Richard, too.
It should be on our
Okay, sorry.
plans, and we'll submit
All
those.
right, okay. And then this fixture and lighting levels as exist. Mr. Hines?
Sorry, did you ask a question? I'm a little choppy over here, I'm sorry.
Okay, I have a slow network. The existing lighting levels and light fixture will be the proposed will be the same as the existing light fixture.
The light fixtures will, yes, they will remain consistent, and they will be also recycled from our old lot. If that was your
All right,
question.
thank you. All right, thank you very much. Let's go to comments.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Black.
Thank you. So I think it's been pointed out already, but I had some concerns with the relative lack of screening, particularly in the areas of existing landscape that's being proposed to just remain. I think that location C photograph illustrates it best. I mean, and has been pointed out already, but you know, we really need to screen this parking lot, both from the that parking lot exit that goes out to Moffett and then along Moffett itself. The only screening material that I actually see is on the corner there. And I think that we really need to have an extension of screening material, around the complete L, if you will. And then my only other comment, or any other opportunities we have for screening the parking areas is well, it's city code anyway that we have to screen parking. But and then just a note from my perspective, I think the plant material probably seems fine. The selection, the only issue that I might have is the use of the Tipawana tree, which you have in this sort of upper area. Anyone will tell you those trees get enormously large. That's why I was asking about the height restrictions. I think you may want to be in your best interest perhaps to look at another opportunity for trees. You have olives and Gajira, I think those are probably fine. But, Tipawanas have the capability, and I'm looking at a reference now, but they have the capability of getting 35 to 50 feet high and almost as wide. So you may want to rethink using those in these little islands here. Just think they might be too large. And I believe those are my only comments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Black. Anybody else? Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, I mean, I support the project. I think the locations of the landscaping is fine. So I would just give it to Mr. Black for the comments regarding the planting materials. But otherwise, I think it's compatible and the location is fine.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, I have another comment or two.
Mr. Olson?
Again, I apologize for my lack of comprehension here, but I think we're being asked to assess the visual impact. And while I think we have covered the landscaping issue, and I do agree with Mr. Black, I'm generally still confused as to the visual impact of the new fence. I'm uncertain as to what that impact is. And I'm not sure it's the applicant's fault. I just am having trouble understanding the screening.
Mr. Six,
That's all my
now
comments.
my opportunity to answer the question.
That's kind of, can you, Mr. Olson, can you, craft that into a comment rather than a question?
Well, it is a comment. I'm uncertain as to what the visual impact is. And I guess I'm reluctant to ask the applicant to come back with a better description of what it is if there is no support from my fellow commissioners that is needed. If everybody else sees it clearly, then I can let that go.
All right.
I can say something to the fence. I mean, we won't be able to see it from the road. The only place you'll be able to see it is when you park there for a rental car. So I think the visual impact from a person renting the car, it could be a bit abrasive. So maybe if it's up to TSA standards, they could add maybe a small planting along that fence. Would that help? Mr. Olson?
I don't know what a small planting would look like, but
Well, just like a planting bed in front of it.
I suppose it would help. I'm not willing to ask them to do that.
Okay.
That was, Ms. Anderson, that was kind of one of my ideas, but, and I guess back to questions to the applicant, would either a continuous planter or intermittent planters against the parking lot side of that fence be allowed by TSA?
Mr. Six, it might be allowed by TSA. However, I really want to say that this project is a temporary project, which is a stepping stone to our next project within our master plan. So this is going to be a temporary fence with that tennis court mesh across it. And it's going to look very similar to our current rental car fence. And I have pictures of those in that PowerPoint. And
Whoa, hold it. That fence, so what part of this project is temporary and what does temporary mean then?
I'm relatively new here. I've been with the Santa Barbara Airport for about 2 years. And within our master plan, we are expanding our terminal south. And currently, what we need to do is we need to find a bigger lot for our rental car spaces. And also we need to have 3 RON spaces for our aircraft. And from what I understand is the current rental car parking lot was also a stepping stone to get to here.
So this fence may or may not be permanent or temporary, depending on long range plans, correct?
I don't see how it's permanent. I would say that this is a temporary fence.
And Vice Chair, I might add that when we construct it, it's going to be constructed in a permanent nature. So it's going to be embedded in concrete as if it's not going to go anywhere. When we think of
Yeah,
temporary, we're thinking within a few years or maybe a couple years that there'd be another redevelopment of the site.
Okay,
Thank you, Brad.
I think that we need to not consider the temporariness of this. So,
I agree with what you're saying there, Mr. Six, except this was the first that we've heard that this may be a temporary fence. And I think that if the applicant is saying that, his application ought to say it somewhere in it, that it's considered to be a temporary fence. And I don't see any indication of that other than what's being said at this hearing.
So
well then,
in response to
then-
that,
yes, please.
so when we think of temporary, from our standpoint, it's generally if it's 6 months or less. And just to give you a perspective on our redevelopment plans after this Southfield project, we haven't even started design on that expansion. So we're still a couple years away, or at least a year before we're seriously thinking about this second phase of redevelopment, if you will. So that's why we proposed it as without that temporary language in there.
Right. So let me ask you this then. The ultimate, when you get this fully development, will we still, per TSA's requirements, have this type of fence in the long range permanent, or could it be upgraded to a better looking fence or wall?
There will be a combination of walls, buildings, and TSA fence. According to the master plan, there could be a multi-story parking structure there. There could be a terminal expansion in this area. So it would be reconfigured quite considerably.
Okay, thank you. So onward with comment.
I think I'm the only one that hasn't commented. I would want to say that I would support the project as it's presented. The drawings that we're looking at, I think that we can, with Board Member Black's comment of additional screening at the at Moffett Place, I would agree with that. I would add that to, I think that should be added with our motion when we send this, but I think we should be ready to send this on to planning.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Newt. I do too agree that this is acceptable. I do have concerns about the fence and its look and its barbed wire top and so forth. But I think that this, given all the requirements for TSA and the nature of areas such as these, the functional aspects override, and the temporariness, whatever that means of it, is that this fence at this point is appropriate, even though not the best aesthetic looking thing, but and I'm hoping the ultimate solution will have a more sensitive fence design. But I think at this point, in this juncture, at this project, this fence is okay. I think because it's deeply screened from Moffett Place and have several multiple planters in front of it between public and the fence. I think it's again acceptable. I concur with the comments that of the existing landscaping along the L-shaped apron enclosure, that landscaping should be fully developed and improved. And just David, I don't know whether, I have little faith with the volume and the growth of olive trees. So the olive trees might be, have some other species that's more aggressive and larger. So I don't know whether that can be added to our comments or not. You feel that olive is an appropriate tree?
Yeah, I do. A fruitless olive, which is what they've specified. My concern was the proposed use of Tipuanas. I just feel like it's too big a tree for the spaces that are proposed.
But the fruitless olive is appropriate tree size and aggressiveness.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, so I think we've hammered this one out. Ready for a motion. Would anybody like to make a motion? David, I'm gonna pick on you.
Oh, okay. So I'd like to make a motion to continue this item to the Planning Commission with comments. We think it's a acceptable solution to expansion of the parking lot areas. And we have some conditions, though, that should be addressed. Number one would be additional screening material along Moffett and that around the completed L-shaped planter to adequately screen these parking areas where no screening exists in particular. Some consideration should be given to another alternative tree in place of the Tipu trees that are being proposed. All the other landscape seems acceptable. Any other conditions or comments we want to include as part of this motion? Anybody else?
If you
don't.
If you wanted to include somehow the word that this is considered to be a temporary, the applicant has considers this a temporary fence as we are now, and that's how we were looking at it.
Yeah, I think some light concern about the chain link fence and the barbed wire, that the board is concerned about it. Understand that it might be temporary, and just a brief, we're concerned about it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll include that as part of the motion.
And then David, if we could have up on screen our famous compatibility criteria, if you could go through that in a temporary, preliminary bit, not temporary, but
Yep.
Preliminary basis. Thank you.
Okay. Compatibility findings, we find that the design of the project is consistent with design guidelines applicable to location of the project, particularly airport design guidelines. The design is compatible, probably not with the architectural qualities of that are distinctive of Santa Barbara, because primarily this is parking lot and landscape. So,
David, I think you could throw in that it's compatible with the design guidelines for the airport, in particular that there's no structure.
yes, I'll include that. Size, bulk, and scale is sort of not appropriate in this for this particular project. I think design would be sensitive to the federal, state, and city landmarks, in particular the airport terminal as a designated historic resource. I don't believe there, well, I believe that there are, the old airport structure, building rather, is considered a structure of merit. Design project responds appropriately to establish scenic public vistas, yes. And the use of open space and landscaping is appropriate as proposed.
All right.
So-
A motion, further discussion?
Well, I would second that, but I wanted to jump back to item 3, in that the size, mass, height, bulk, and scale, you said that's not appropriate, or do you mean it's not applicable?
Not applicable. Well,
Okay.
just because there are no structures per se.
Right, so if we could just clarify that it's not
Yes.
applicable.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm. So I would second that.
I have some
Second.
discussion before we vote.
Absolutely. Mr. Olson.
So I'm going to abstain from this because I am unsure as to the visual impact of this fence. And if when the applicant comes back, I would like him to bring a sample of the fence rather than a verbal description of it. And I would also like the applicant to make very clear where this fence is going to be and what it's going to look like. And it's possible I will then be in favor of this. At the moment, I am not going to. I'm going to be an abstainer.
So noted, Mr. Olson. All right, we have a motion.
And a second.
And a second. So
Mr.
we're up for a vote. Mary, there you are.
All right, thank you. I can go ahead and take the roll call vote, and I'll start with Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes,
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Board Member Olson.
Abstain.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
Vice Chair Six, pardon the interruption. I'm just wondering if it'd be more appropriate for Board Member Olson to just vote no on the motion rather than abstain from it.
Perhaps. I'll change my vote to no.
All right, we still have a quorum vote, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Thank you, applicants, and good luck at Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Next- Yeah, thank you. Next item, 36 East Montecito Street.
we might be a
Thank you,
little
Vice.
How
Thank
are we
you,
doing
Vice-
on?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. We're actually, that second item we've already announced as a postponement. So the next item will be item 3 at 4:30, if the board would like to recess until 4:30.
Thank you for your help there. Okay, so we will adjourn until 4:30. Architecture Board review meeting of November 1st, 2021. And next item on the agenda is 618 Olive Street. This is a continued item. Project design approval is requested. This is a proposal for a new multi-unit residence using an average unit size density AUD program. Project entails conversion of existing 3 apartment units into 4 units by adding a new 2-bedroom unit B above a new attached 4-car garage. The project includes a 200 square foot addition to connect units C and D as a duplex. The result would be 4 residential units ranging in size from 882 to 1,043 square foot with an average unit size of 933 square feet. The proposed density on this 10,041 square foot lot is 17 dwellings per units per acre on a parcel with a general plan land use designation of commercial, industrial / medium high density residential, which allows between 15 and 7 dwelling units per acre. The proposal includes a new trash and recycling closure for 4 new bike lockers. The development would have 4 covered parking spaces. And the project is here before us for project design approval. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility findings and the urban design guidelines. Project was last reviewed on August 23rd, 2021. Is our applicant here?
I am, yes. Thank you, Vice Chair 6. My name's Noah Greer. I'm the architect on the project representing On Design Architects.
Pardon
So before
the
you
inter- Vice Chair 6, I wanted to know if the board would like to go through these, the motion from last time. There were significant details there. And also I did have brief staff comments.
Absolutely. Here are the comments. I'll read through them. At this time, the project appears to be moving in a satisfactory direction. The overall project seems to provide a good solution to providing additional housing in this neighborhood. The board overall feels the project, with the exception of a few comments, is generally acceptable. The applicant shall return with a site plan that depicts the window locations of the southerly neighbor. The landscaping and window locations of the proposed project respond appropriately to those locations. Applicant shall provide windows that are in keeping with those that are on existing, and the window type shall be consistent throughout the project. Applicant shall study ways of reducing the apparent width of the garage doors by various means. Applicant shall study second floor deck location of the proposed units as it was visually weak between units A and B. The applicant shall study providing additional landscape along the driveway side of the project if possible. And study eliminating the windows at the garage or provide smaller windows raised above eye level. And that was in respect to the neighbor. So that does comments?
Thank you very much, Vice Chair 6. That way we can all get reacquainted with the project from that. I just did want to say that this project did go through the land development team process and has met all of the requirements of the land development team. They were determined complete on September 30th, which means they do need an appealable action by this board within 60 days of that. So they are looking for an appealable action today. However, if the board can't get to an appealable action today, there is an opportunity to continue them to the November 29th hearing, which would still be in the within the Permit Streamlining Act. So just wanted to let you know about those things that are going on in terms of the planning for this project. With that, thank you.
With that, do we have our applicant? And if you could, as we've reviewed this before, if you could go through quickly what's changed and focus on in our comments.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. My name's Noah Greer, representing On Design Architects. Also present with me will be Sam Maphis from Earthform Landscape Design. We were last here in August, so I'll quickly remind you about the site and describe the architectural landscape changes, and then address individually the comments from your board. So if we can begin, please, with the site context photos that we originally submitted. Just looking at the first photo, which is aerial oblique. We're at located on the northeast side of Olive between Coda and Ortega, 3 lots up from Arnoldi's. The lot is a 50 by 200 foot lot, currently developed with 3 one-story cottages. The pattern of development in the neighborhood is definitely mixed, from dense, large, boxy commercial to single-family cottages and multifamily cottages. Many of the existing buildings are 2-story buildings. Many of the existing buildings are 1-story buildings. And in this case, we do have a 1-story site project next to us on one side, and we have a 2-story project on the other side. So it looks like we might not be able to look at the site context photos, which is fine.
I'm not getting anything here. Mr. Bolton, are we having technical problems?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. We are trying to locate those right now.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. I think it's okay to skip those if the board feels comfortable with the neighborhood that we're discussing. If we could show, however, the concept renders that we submitted with the most recent submittal.
Yes, we have those. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is one of 3 concept renders, and I can speak to this if staff can locate the trio of images that were submitted. I'll just briefly begin here. Again, the project is an AUD conversion of existing 3-unit property to create 4 workforce units. So there's an existing shared driveway that leads to a new 2-story unit. And that's what you're seeing in the middle of this render that would replace an existing 1-story garage that's attached to the existing street-facing unit you see on the right. Behind that is we have 2 1-story cottages that would be connected with a new attached bathroom. Okay. And I wanted to describe some of the changes that you'll see immediately, although this view flattens the elevation considerably, are that we've gone with all hipped roofs, and we relocated the balcony to the center of the space because of some of the tricky situation we had where it met the roof of the existing Unit A previously. If we're unable to locate those renders now, that's okay, but I will need them to address the neighbor comments later. For now, we can just, in terms of the plan set, we can jump to sheet 2, the site plan, please. So there were a few changes made to the site plan. We have the same footprint on the structure. We did revise the entry, and we shifted the trash enclosures and the bike enclosures ever so slightly. One of the comments from your board was to look at the trash enclosure location and confirm that it's acceptable to the fire department along the property line. We did confirm that with the fire department. In terms of the site development, we did work to carve away even more at the existing paving. So now we have even less paving remaining at the rear of the site there to the right of Unit D. You'll see in the middle in the dark gray hatch on the new site plan, that's the new 2-story unit. And then on the right in the dark gray hatch, you'll see that's the restroom addition to Units C and D that I referenced. Okay, now the site plan, if we can zoom in on view 2, the new site plan, please. You'll notice we updated the site plan to show the northerly neighbor. I should say the approximate footprint and the approximate window locations of the northerly neighbor here. Then you'll note that one of the concerns from the neighbor that we'll discuss more later is the blocking of private views from these windows. And so certainly the window on the west side of their 2nd story would be obstructed by the new 2-story. On the plan right, on the east side of the plan there. However, we're retaining the single-story units And so I don't know that it's reasonable to consider a, considerable obstruction of the views from those windows. However, we'll also look at the exhibit that the neighbors submitted to talk more about that. Okay. Then I want to say lastly, one of the board's requests was that we explore the adding of a landscape buffer, or a planter, I should say, even a very small planter on the north side of Unit A there at the driveway, such that we'd have a new linear planter along the building. We discussed that at length with the fire department, and they will not provide any flexibility on adding a planter at that location. They have some very specific concerns about their ability to access the site and open the doors on their equipment. And so that correspondence was submitted to city staff as well. Okay, if we can jump to sheet 3, please. 3 is the existing site elevations. You notice here that we're approximating the massing of the northerly neighbor there and approximating the window locations and how they relate to the existing development. And that's that light gray hatch on the left on view 3. Now if we can go to sheet 4, please. Zooming in on view 4, of course, we see that the new 2-story development that would obstruct the view from the window we previously saw on the right from the neighbor. So I think this helps give a sense of the relationship between the two. All right, if we can jump to view 9, the floor plan, please. This is our proposed plan for the new unit. I believe it's sheet 9 in the set. We're retaining two car garages on the ground floor. We're retaining the entry on the west side of the plan. Maybe I have the sheet number incorrect. It should be the new floor plan, please. It looks like I do have the number incorrect. It's 10. Thank you very much. If we can zoom in on the first floor plan. So we're retaining the entry at plan west here. It's just been slightly reconfigured from what we were showing before. And then if we can jump to the second floor plan, please. We still have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit proposed with the balcony shifted to the center of the unit. Bedroom 1 overhangs the first floor by 36 inches. And then to provide a little more articulation, the balcony also overhangs the first floor just by 12 inches there. Now, in terms of the relationship of the windows to the neighbor's windows, the only window that's located directly across or approximately directly across from the neighbor's second floor window is window O in bedroom 2. We could potentially improve this situation by shifting that window to plan right, which we're not opposed to. Thank you. Then if we can jump to the roof plan, sheet 11. Okay, previously your board saw a proposed gable on the right side there facing the driveway. However, with the redesign, we opted to keep the roofs consistent across the entire site and went with hips everywhere. Where unit B, the new unit, meets the existing unit A, we no longer have a cricket. We had sort of a funky situation there before, I'll admit. Now we're able to solve the waterproofing conundrum there by simply extending the existing hipped roof over. All right, can we jump to the proposed elevations, please? Sheet 13. Okay, the overall style has not changed substantially. The intent is to sort of reflect the simplicity of the existing cottages that we have out there in terms of stylistically and our use of materials, et cetera. Again, the balcony was shifted to the middle. There we have a simple railing detail to reflect the existing that we have on unit A. The bedrooms and the balconies here, you can read a bit more how much relief they provide in the elevation. Again, the bedroom in view 1 there on the top left overhangs 36 inches. You can see in view 2, there was some discussion with your board about the windows that we had in the garage. All the windows in the first floor garages have been redesigned as tall, clear-story windows. Okay, and then also speaking about the garages again in view 1, we are specifying a Clopay carriage house doors to help break up the visual appearance of those large garage doors. We did explore trying to provide 4 separate garage doors. However, we simply do not have the backup distance that would be required to accommodate that sort of layout. Thank you. Then if you could zoom up on this sheet just to look at the colors that we're proposing. We have a simple asphalt roofs to pick up some of the siding and trim colors. In general, we have a white trim with either a creamy white siding or the green, the jade that we're proposing for the new unit now. Thank you. If we can jump to the details sheet, which is sheet 5. So we added details for this round, and I'll keep it brief. Their view 7, we added exterior sconces we feel are simple and appropriate to the scale. Then detail 19, just very simple trim and siding at the windows. And if we could zoom in on detail 19, please, that might be helpful. Again, trying to keep it consistent with the style of the existing. Then on the next sheet, please, detail 7. This is our eave detail. Again, it's very simple to mate well with the existing cottage that we're attaching to. Down to detail 8, please, or up to detail 8, excuse me. Just a simple guardrail detail. Again, this is meant to reflect the simplicity of the existing cottages. All right, and if we can jump to the landscape plan, the first sheet in the landscape plan, please. And here, I'll just provide a very quick overview, and Sam can jump in if he feels he would like to, or if you have any questions, of course, he'll answer them. So we did make changes based on neighbor concerns previously and based on board input. Again, we removed even more paving there on the east side of the plan, shifted the trash enclosures and the bike enclosure lockers slightly to relate to the existing structure and better locate some gates. And compared to the initial proposal, we've deleted many palm trees, including at the neighbor windows on the east side of this plan. There used to be palms behind units C and D completely. The intention behind the palms that we retained was simply to provide some vertical landscape in places where they would not block the views. At this point in time, we did retain the palms behind new unit B, simply to help provide some landscape between the 2-story facade of the new unit and the neighboring property. However, if that's still deemed undesirable by our board or the neighbor, that is potentially something we could change. Although from our point of view, it's a bonus to help provide a bit of a buffer between the 2 structures. Okay, and then lastly, we did retain the private open yard and the common barbecue areas that we had before between the 2 buildings. One of the neighbor comments relates to the tree we have in the central private open yard area there. There are some concerns that the trees will block views. In this case, we're reluctant to lose the trees because we think the trees are functionally necessary to help improve the quality of those spaces. Of course, we're happy to talk about them, however. All right, I think unless Sam, you feel there's anything necessary to add at this time, I'd like to jump into the neighbor comments in particular.
Sam, you're muted. Sam, you're muted. You're still muted. You're still muted.
Sorry, I can't unmute myself. Maybe you have to take it.
Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, sorry. So I think back to the comment about that functional privacy aspect of the 1 tree dividing the 2 buildings that Noah mentioned. That currently we've proposed an Arbutus marina, which is not a large tree. The idea would be that it would create some shade and microclimate for that patio between the 2 for enjoyable use of it, as well as, you know, some privacy in terms of the 2-story looking down into that at ground level. Again, he mentioned that we did remove the palm trees behind unit C and D, and we can even shift another palm tree if that would help on the far east end and move it around to the east side to create a trio of trees if there's an opening that we could shift. And we could potentially eliminate one palm behind the two-story to soften enough of the building that really does create a vertical buffer between the two properties, but maybe would allow a little bit of air space to look over that two-story garage. We're open to some, changes, but we really think this does respect a quality of landscape upgrades to this property as it's going through its development that respects the neighbors in many ways and yet listens to their concerns where we can afford to make things a little bit better for them. So I think that's it for now, unless there's specific questions for me.
All right, thank you. So.
Thank you, Sam. Excuse me, Vice Chair Six. May I wrap up by addressing the neighbor comments?
Can we first hear from them? Is that appropriate? Let's first hear from them
Okay. Yes.
and involve you at the appropriate times if necessary. Ms. McGuire?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I just want to let the applicant team know that we do have those concept renders available if you wanted to show those during the hearing.
You want to show them now or during after public comment?
Thank you. Yes, let's keep them until after public comment.
All right, very good. So with that completion of the applicant's presentation, we'll open up the meeting to public comment. And if you'd follow the staff's instructions on how to participate, we'll get your comments.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Six. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on this item, please click on the raise lower your hand icon, and that will give staff, that will let staff know that you would like to speak on this item. At this time, I don't see that anybody has raised their hand indicating that they would like to speak. Mary, have we received any written public correspondence for this item?
Yes, thank you, Christina and board members. We did receive one email from Timothy and Lisa Couch, which was distributed to the board before this meeting. Thank you.
All right, so with that, no participants, we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting and bring it back to the board. I think if we have no public comment, it would be interesting to have the applicant show their missing items.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. Yes, and thank you. I will keep it brief, but I do think it's important to address the comments that were received. And we can jump to the next sheet of these renderings, please. I just want the board to see the updated view from the street. I think this reflects the articulation on the two-story behind a bit better than the other view, which flattens it considerably. So in this view, you can see behind the existing white cottage, of course, back down the driveway, the central balcony that really helps articulate the appearance of the mass of the building, especially as you're driving up to it along the driveway. Okay, thank you. And then the next view here is just a sort of clay rendering, roughly showing the existing height and massing in window locations from the neighbor to the north. So you can see they have three banks of windows. There may be multiple windows within each bank, I'm not certain. One that has a kind of Dutch gable at the front of their site, and then the others, both of which are set back or all three of which are set back considerably from the property line. However, there's no denying the fact that this building is located in front of the window at the front of their building. And I think it's reasonable for them to express concern about development on this site. They submitted a set of plans, may or may not be appropriate to show now. I'll sort of speak to that. It appears generally our window locations were correct, generally correct, at least as we were showing them on our plans, so I feel confident about that. The largest two of their three windows are not seriously obstructed, as I see it. And we have made landscape changes to address their comments before, and are willing to make additional landscape changes as well. I do think it's important for them and the board and all of us to understand that the city designated this site for considerably denser and taller construction than we're proposing. This site could have 6 units on it and not the 4 we're proposing. It could be 2-story, it could even be 3-story all the way back, blocking all of those windows within rights without any requested modifications or special approvals. This is,
All right. Go
yes,
ahead.
I'll wrap it right up. It is an urban infill site. There is a priority housing overlay, and that permits construction with 0 lot line setbacks up to 45 feet in height. So I hope your board will conclude that this is a reasonable proposal for the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. So I will close that additional questions from the board. Does anybody have questions? I have one question. I'm confused, Mr. Greer. The plant, you refer several times to the neighbor in concern to the neighbor to the north. And your plan indicates that would be across the driveway.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sticks.
Are we not concerned about the neighbor to the south?
We are. I'm utterly discombobulated and using the wrong term.
Okay.
It is the southerly
All right.
neighbor.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? It's a little, I'm sure that everybody has read the letters from the neighbor to the south. It's a little hard to, well, that's a comment. So it's a little hard to respond to concerns without them represented. But I will stop right now and ask for questions.
Are we on?
No questions.
Are we on comments or questions?
I just closed comments and I'm now introducing comments.
Those questions.
Anybody would like to go? Mr. Olson.
I do. So I appreciate the applicant's attention to our suggestions and requests. I think the project is improved. I especially appreciate the reduction in the amount of concrete on the project. And I think it's ready for PDA.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Anderson.
I do think it's ready for project design approval. I would support moving the window O and unit B. I would support moving that east so it's not directly across from the neighbor to the south's window. And I don't mind the vertical palm trees as a buffer between them.
Okay. Mr. Black, do you have any comments, especially on whether those palm trees will fit in that tight space? I snuck that one.
Yeah, thank you. It will be tight. I suspect that it'll probably suffice. My suggestion is when the time comes for planting, that perhaps they could coordinate with the neighbors just in terms of the final tree locations to sort of finesse their concerns. And I think that's always a good neighborly thing to do. And I think it'll probably add to both the project and the neighbors' perception of the design. So, but otherwise, I think I think it's nicely done. They've addressed the comments that were laid out, and I think it's a nice project. It's well landscaped as well. I mean, so oftentimes projects of this sort on such narrow, constrained lots don't have a lot of landscape, but this one does. And so I think it's ready for PDA as well. Thanks.
Great. Mr. Nunn?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I think it's ready as well.
Yes, so I think, you know, given, as the applicant said, that this lot in the zone could enjoy a much larger project, but as we've commented before, this is very appropriate to this the existing level of housing. So I support the project and am ready to give it PDA. And I'm wondering if from staff, this is probably ahead of the time, but I think David's comment about informing the neighbors of for palm tree locations is a very good one. Can we demand that be put on the plans at final?
Vice Chair Six, you're referring to the location of the palm tree?
The requirement of embedded in the landscape plan that the landscape contractors shall coordinate and demand that they have the neighbor involved in the location of. So once once the final plans are done, can we demand a note on the plans that the contractor must coordinate with the neighbor to have the final location of those palm trees established? I don't know if we can.
Vice Chair Six, I don't think that's something that we can require. However, the applicant seems to be working with the neighbors, so it's definitely something we can ask the applicant to provide proof of at the final approval. So if you would like to add in your motion today that the applicant provide evidence that they've chatted with the neighbors, that's something that you can do, and that way we can verify that it's done before final approval.
No, this is after this is during construction.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that's something that we can
I don't think we can. I don't think we can allow any power to the neighbor on the plan. So, never mind. So, is anybody ready to make a motion?
I can make the motion.
All right, Mr. Olson.
I move to approve the project for project design approval. And I don't have any conditions to add to that. So if someone would like to add to my motion, I will listen to those. But if not, that is all of my motion.
Okay, the first item to is would you have? I would suggest you add. Are you suggesting that it return to full board for final, or to consent for final?
And return to consent for final.
Okay. And then there was a applicable comment about moving window O to the other side of the bedroom to reduce conflict with the neighbor to the south. Would you be willing to add that to your comment?
I would.
Okay.
Yes. Ms. Anderson, do you want to speak that point again so that Mary can record it?
Sure. It was to move window O in unit B east so that is not directly across from the neighbor to the south's window.
Okay.
And then if Mr. Olson, you would go through the project compatibility findings.
The project is consistent with design guidelines. It is compatible with the architectural character of the city and this particular neighborhood. It's appropriate in size, mass, both height and scale. It is sensitive to adjacent landmarks and historic resources of which we know none exist. The public views of the ocean and mountains are not significantly affected, and the use of the open space and landscaping is appropriate.
All right, thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
That was Mr. Black. Thank
Yes.
you. So we have a motion on the floor.
All right, I can go ahead and take a roll call vote, and I'll start with Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Block,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Board Member Olson.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you, applicant.
Thank you all.
Excuse me, this was a appealable decision, so anybody who would like to appeal it to city council has 5 days from this date to do so. That's 10 days, excuse me, 10 days. Why did I say 5? 10 days. I think that our next applicant is at 5:30, so we have to again adjourn.
Thank you. Correct.
All right, so we will adjourn until 5:30. I will reconvene the architectural board review for November 1st, 2021. Next item on the agenda is 208 Cottage Grove Avenue. This is a new item. A concept review is tested. This is a proposal for a 3-story, 6 multi-residential building using the average unit density AUD program. Project entails construction of 6 new 2-bedroom units ranging from size between 835 and 948 square feet, with an average size of 894 square feet. The proposed density on the 4,821 square foot lot is 54 dwellings per unit per acre on a parcel with a general plan land use designation of commercial high density residential in the priority zoning overlay, which allows between 36 and 63 dwelling units per acre. The proposal includes 6 covered parking spaces and demolition of the existing residential unit and accessory structures. This is a concept with no final appealable decision made at this hearing. The project will ultimately require compliance with the project compatibility findings and the urban design guidelines. Is our applicant here?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. Our applicant is here and ready. I just wanted to make a couple of comments before the project. Thank you. This is the first time the board has seen this project. It has gone through the land development team for review, stormwater, transportation, creeks, zoning and planning. It is not quite yet complete. However, the applicant is here to get some concept comments on the design. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. McGuire. Mr. Gadeen, your presentation, please.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Christina and board members. Is everyone familiar with the block and the location of the project? Should we look at the vicinity map first, please, since we're on this page? So as you can see, we're roughly 2 blocks off the freeway or so, block and a half. And right at the Bath Street exit going north on 101, about 1 block away from the Bath Street exit. And then you can see over on the, what would be the north side or northeast, Chapala 1, which is 43 unit development plus commercial, 4-story. And to the more directly east towards the freeway, there's the El Zoco 3-story development, which is 17 units. And then there's some 2 and 3-story developments, or 2.5-story developments on our block, which we'll look at as we go through the photos. So could we go to the photo sheet first, please? And if you could zoom in on the top left, or actually top right, which has the area site aerial photo. Yeah, thank you. So just to walk through where the photos are occurring, you can see one here is directly from street frontage. Number 2 is also just a slightly different angle, so you can see down the street more. 3, 4, and 5 are taken from the roof of the existing unit so that you can see more clearly what's going on in the surrounding area. And then we go back down to the street. 6, we're looking at this corner existing sort of industrial car storage lot directly across from us. And then down the street, you can see the development down the street. And 7, we're looking back towards Chapala 1, which you can see you'll see the upper stories of that from this location. And 8 and 9 looking down De La Vina towards El Zoco and the freeway and adjacent developments. So we can go over to the left, top left. Yeah, one more over to the left. I see, you went to number, yeah, you were correct, but this is fine. So you can see 208 on the left-hand side there. And then our immediate neighbor on the, again, northeast side, let's call it the north side, was a 1-story residential. And then we go to the next photo, you can see more clearly what is there now on the site 208, which is photo number 1. Yeah, and the site has very little landscaping currently. It's mostly concrete, and has a number of violations also that will all be mitigated. Everything is being demoed that's currently on the site. Next photo number 3, please. So now we're on the roof of the existing unit looking north, and you can see here through the trees a bit, Chapala 1 development and the roof of the adjacent residence to the north. Next photo, please. Yeah, so it's, we're not quite seeing the whole of the photo, but this is the backyard of 208. If you can go a little bit further to the left, yes, thank you. So the here is the 2-story apartments that are adjacent on the south side. The south side property has both a 1-story at the front and the 2-story apartments at the back. And then immediately behind us is a very small vacant lot with 3 big trees on it. And I think it is an undevelopable parcel because it's so tiny. I'm not sure the square footage. It's probably 600, maybe 800 square feet. The next photo, please. And this is looking south, again, from the roof. So you can see this is the 1-story residence immediately to our south, the 2-story apartments at the back. And I put 2 photos here together, so it's kind of distorting the view. But what it also shows you is that the parcel adjacent to the one immediately to the south is a 2-story development that goes all the way back, front to back of the parcel. But because it looks like more than a story or half a story above the street level, it's really, close to being at the 3rd-story level. Next photo. And this is the very nice industrial building right across the street from us, with some nice old cars too to enhance the view. And then looking north towards Chapala 1. And this is at street level. So you can see I'm, standing in the street looking, and it's a very prominent aspect of Chapala 1 there. It's actually 401 Chapala Street. Next photo, please. So now we're looking east, and you can see the corner of El Zoco here, and more of the car storage lot. And again, this is a 17-unit, 3-story development. Was built in the late 90s. Next photo, please. And a kind of contemporary Southwest style. That's the other thing that we should be noticing is the mix of styles here. And this is also along De La Vina, just across and down slightly from us, another, you could say, sort of Spanish hybrid tile roof style, 2-story. Next photo, please. And then this is going south. So that 2.5-story development which is, I believe it's all commercial actually, that we were looking at in the photos from the roof, that's 2 parcels away from us is here. And you can see how the floor level is roughly half a level above street level. Next photo. And more examples of what's on the block. This is just 1 or 2 units down from our parcel, industrial, commercial, tile roof.
Mr. Gerdine, if you could, I think we're familiar with the neighborhood. If
Okay, sure.
Google, you might,
Sure.
instead of, you might want to get to your proposal.
Okay, yep. So that does the photo sheet, and we'll go to the site plan, please, first sheet. So as you can see, we're some aspects of the project in terms of footprint. If you could focus in more on the site plan itself, please. A little bit closer to the site plan so it's easier to see. Thank you. There's we're switching the driveway side because of the, it actually relates to what happens at the 2nd and 3rd levels in terms of sun access and unit access. That's really determining which side we have the driveway on. Because at the ground level, the base square footage is right here, which is just the lobby, stairs, elevator, and then trash and bicycle parking, and then our 6 parking spaces. So we're as you can see, we're along the north side. We're right at the property line. Then we've got 4 feet at the back that we've got a buffer there. I think it's about 3 or 3.5 along the south side here. And then we're back right at the property line as you come towards the front of the parcel. Next, we can go to the floor plan. So 2 of the units are 1-story. The 2 front units, this one and this one, are 1-story units, 2-bedroom. All of them are 2-bedroom. And then the other 4 units, which are in the back, accessed along this north side, are also 2-bedroom, but they're stacked units. So the bedrooms are up at the 3rd floor. And then the 4th floor elements are just roof access. You can see it's just big enough for a stairway, will be probably heating units, and then access onto this required outdoor space for each unit. and then also the solar panels along the south side here. So we can go to the elevations. So we start with the street elevation, which is down on the right there. If you could go and focus on that. So kind of in taking cues from Chapala 1 and the other Spanish styles found on the street, we decided to go with a sort of very traditional Spanish motif, but with some nice detailing. And we're also at the second level, we have a large planter that occurs over this front entrance area. So that we provide some additional buffer to the taller aspects of the development. And then you can also see how the fourth level, which is the roof deck access, is set back on every side. So it really will not be visible from street level at all, that I can tell. And then of course the garage access. So we could go to the left there, the next image to the left. This is along the south side, which is of course our sun access. So we have usable deck space for each of the units on the south side. These are the deck space for the 2 front units, and for the back 3, this fourth one does not have a main level deck space. And that part of that was to provide kind of variety in the articulation of this elevation. And then you can see in the shaded outlined areas here, this is the adjacent development, the 1-story at the front and the 2-story at the back. And we do have room for some small trees, a tree buffer along here. And part of the way that we've designed this garage parking area is with, this would be a high board impressed concrete wall that would look like a fence, but then it would have the opening to provide light and air into that garage, those garage spaces. So we can go to the next elevation. The back, we could go to the back, which is, oh, that's fine, that's fine. So on the opposite side, it's very similar, except that this is where the units are accessed along this walkway here. The garage level, you can see we're treating in the same way. And then we do have mountain views on these upper levels, so we're trying to take advantage of that with larger window areas on this north side. And we can go to the next image. And oh, by the way, the trees that we're showing are all existing, except for the 2 palms that I added in the on the front elevation. These are all existing trees. And this, as I mentioned, on this side, the north, well, we're calling it north elevation here, but this is where the vacant lot occurs, and there's actually 3 large trees right in this location. Kind of a simple but still articulated and interesting arrangement of masses and roof elements and openings. So that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Gradine. With that, we will open public comment. If there's anybody who wishes to speak on this project, assisted by the staff will assist you in participating.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. Just decided to put my light on. It's getting a little late. At this time, I don't see that anybody has joined the webinar to make any public comment on this item. Mary, have we received any written public correspondence for this item?
Thank you, Christina and board members. We did receive 1 email from Bob Cunningham, which was distributed to the board before this meeting. Thank you.
All right, with that, we will close public comment portion and bring it back to the board for questions. So questions, Mr. Olson there, and Mr. Black, and Mr. Black, Mr. Olson? Mr. Olson? We'll start with David. Mr. Black?
So we're calling this, my question is, we're calling this a 3-story building, but we do have those 2 elements on the roof that make it look like 4 stories, just not in mass necessarily, but those are the additional 2-bedroom units. Is that what I'm understanding? Mr. Grudine, on the top there?
Yeah, I'm not, no, those, at the top, it's just the stairway and roof access. There's no living spaces up at that 4th level. And I'm not sure why they called it a 3-story development, perhaps because that 4th story element, like I say, is just the roof access. There's no space, there's not even room to put an easy chair in those spaces. It's very tight, yeah.
I understand. And then question, so the trees on the, I'm gonna say on the north adjacent property, those trees are on the other property, right? They're not on your parcel necessarily, yes? So
right. They're immediately, so they will have to be pruned. You can see on the photos, they're already hanging over onto our parcel, yeah.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. You have access to prune them if you need to, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and then I didn't really see landscape in plan, but so the trees that you're showing along, let's say the west elevation, how much space is there between the building face and the property line there and those locations, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I think we ended up with 3.5 or 4 feet in there. I'm not sure. It was shifting back and forth, but yeah, it's 3.5 or 4.
And what you're showing there, those are not existing, right? Those are trees that you proposed.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And same condition on the I'm going to call it the east side then, east elevation. Do you show trees there?
No, that tree shown is on the adjacent parcel.
Okay.
That's an existing tree right at the property line on the adjacent parcel.
Yeah. And then I guess my general question is, I mean, what would you say the predominant architectural style is for Cottage Grove Avenue? I mean, I look at it and think it looks very cottagey, a lot of horizontal siding, what have you. Pretty unique to the buildings there, but
yeah. Well, it's a mix. In my view, it's a mix. And in fact, there was the most recent project that was completed was down the street, and 1 block down was it was a commercial project, very contemporary, done in very contemporary style by Kevin Moore. And and then you've got, the Southwest El Zoco, that's a block away. Right. And then you've got a mix, as I tried to show in the photographs, there's both, very stark kind of, plaster 2-story straight up. And there's tile roofs with, different levels of finesse in terms of the Spanish style. So, I struggle with that. I wasn't sure quite, which way to go. I think it's up in the air. It could be a Southwest style and still fit. It could be contemporary. It could be cottagey and still fit in the neighborhood, because all of those examples can be found. So, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Mr. Black. Any others? Questions? Yes, Ms. Anderson.
Oh yeah, can we look at the site plan, please? I'm curious if you studied pushing the stair and elevator block plan north and further away from the street.
Well, no. And part of that reason is that it needs to be adjacent to the lobby, and we have it kind of, the location kind of, dictated it itself, because we also have we have sufficient room for all the parking, but not a lot of extra room for the parking. So you can see we have that little storage, a mechanical space in the back that could be reduced in size, but it starts to become problematic because otherwise we don't have any designated space for that. And so we're really, I mean, we could conceivably, you could push it further away from the street a couple of feet, 2-3 feet, but then everything else that's in that bottom level also needs to go back with it. And I'm not sure you really gain anything by doing that.
Mhm.
And,
Okay.
But one of the things we did do is, as I mentioned on the second floor plan, was that we have a sizable landscape buffer actually that's between that stairway and the front of the building. So that there can be greenery growing up and in front of that stairway.
Yeah, did you look at doing something similar on the west side where you have about a 3-story facade on the front of the building? I'm wondering, did you study pushing like one of the units back or making it a different arrangement so that you don't have a 3-story facing your street? Like if we go to the elevation.
Yeah, let's go to the elevation.
So over the garage where you have your other 2-bedroom units, I'm just wondering if you studied breaking up that mass.
Well, I mean, sure. The only way that you could break it up is if you made the units smaller. They're already pretty small for 2-bedroom units. So you could make a couple of them 1-bedroom, like these two front units. You can make them 1-bedroom and maybe shrink the size of that. But I was also noticing that there's recent projects approved on Chapala, right across from Chapala 1, in fact, which have very similar facades right at the street. In fact, even without as much as a buffer, a setback as we've got here, and that it becomes kind of an announcement of a beautiful street-facing announcement of the project. So. To me, it works. And then we have the, just adjacent to it, we have this planter area, which is about 12 feet deep, I believe, after above the 1-story. And then that balcony that you see with the handrail and the roof element, that's set back probably 15, 18 feet from the front entrance facade. So to me, there's a lot of play in the way the mass works in the front. To me, it seems very successful, in fact. But yeah, obviously you could do it a different way.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Henderson. Mr. Noon?
No questions.
Mr. Olson?
Yes. Mr. Graydon, while I find your Spanish colonial design handsome, I also think that the neighborhood is predominantly cottage, and I wonder if you did any studies.
Mr. Olson, we're in questions. We're in questions.
I'm asking a question.
Okay, excuse me.
And I'm wondering whether you did any studies of cottage style.
Well, as I mentioned, it could be done in a cottage style. There's no, I don't have any qualms about that. We looked at the options, and it seemed to us that this was the way to go. So, I'm open to the board. If the board feels strongly that this really needs to be a cottage style, we can come back, and you can see what that looks like. To me, one of the things that's problematic with the cottage style, because we're going in some cases right to the property line, is getting the required fire resistance. In other words, we're not going to be able to use wood, real wood, at that when we're adjacent to the property line like that. So then you get into something like a hardy board, which gets very expensive, both material wise and construction wise. And so yeah, I was part of the consideration was feasibility of construction and not wanting to go to big expenses with materials. So that's yeah, that was part of the decision.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
I apologize, Mr. Olson.
Accepted.
Just one simple question, Mr. Gardine. I know that it looks like there's a continuous parapet height at the 3rd floor. And I know that on one side, that parapet height is governed by the height of required guardrails and so forth for your occupied patios. Are you, do you have that, it looks like you have that same parapet height at the west elevation also, even though those are unoccupied. Could those parapets be brought down?
Where are you referring to now?
So if we look at the east elevation, the third floor parapet heights are governed by the balcony rail heights that are required to contain people. But then on the west elevation, I think you're matching that same height, but yet you don't have any occupied spaces to require that height.
The 3rd floor, you're saying 3rd floor. Do you mean 3rd floor?
3rd floor, the main parapet height. Just below your houses. Just below your penthouses.
Yeah. Oh, so there is no parapet along here. This is flat. Can you see where my arrow is? You can't see where my arrow is, can you?
No, you can't.
Okay.
So your dome on the elevator, you drop down to that roof level. There's the parapet. That parapet height.
Yeah, I see. So you're saying, can't we vary that?
Seems like that should be lowered because it's not a balcony required height.
Well, it is an outdoor space, actually, required outdoor space. Even that where your cursor is right now, yes.
Oh,
it's a common outdoor space right there.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. And then, as long as we're on this elevation, you have your first, or you're reading from left to right. You have your concrete wooden pressed fences in the first 4 openings. What are you doing in the last, most right-hand opening where the bushes are?
Oh yeah.
In front of, is that it?
Right.
What kind of architecture is that differing from?
Thank you. I didn't mention that. That's what I'm showing there is the same board press concrete, but with a trellis, a kind of a trellis grid above it, so that the vines can, because we do have a planting area right there, and it will be partially visible at an angle from the street. So we're wanting to use that for vines that can grow on the building there, and eventually cover that opening.
Okay. And then last question was, I didn't notice on the floor plan, in the very rear, what would that be? The north property line adjacent to those trees, your site plan doesn't indicate any fencing, or does it? So you're planning to just leave?
No, there is a fence there. Well, I didn't draw it on the elevations, but yeah, no, there would be a fence there. And, probably whatever is allowed in terms of height and, redwood vertical slat redwood.
Okay.
But we didn't draw it in.
As well as, oh, there you go, it's a redwood fence. Okay, so that would continue both on the west and the, oh, there it is. I saw, I didn't see the 14. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Mhm.
So we did open public comment, yes. And so I think we're complete with our questions.
I have one more question.
You sure it is a question?
I'm going to submit them in writing first. So the finished floor heights, Mr. Graydon, they look to be maybe finished floor to ceiling finish is 8.5 or 9. Is that correct?
Currently, yeah, we're showing 9 feet floor to ceiling, 10-foot floor to floor.
Okay.
For the second and third floor, and then that, as you can see, that roof access has an 8.6 plate on one side. It gets a little bit higher on the other side.
So that does represent an opportunity. That this is not a question. I'm going to wait for a comment on this one.
Good for you.
Thank you.
So would you like to dive into comments, Mr. Olson?
Oh, I have one more question.
Oh, excuse me, Miss Anderson.
Sorry, I just was thinking about this. I see there's different elevations from the street level up to the garage finished floor, and I was just curious if you studied maybe even sinking the garage just like a foot or two so that we come in and you go down instead of up.
Very good question. Yes, in fact, we started with a much flatter garage level, lower garage level, but we are in the flood zone.
Okay.
And the lobby and the garage have to be above, 2 feet above street level as a
Okay.
minimum. Yeah, so yeah, very good question.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we are into comments. Anybody
So-
willing to?
I have a
Yeah.
comment, Mr. Six.
All right,
So the floor to ceiling heights do represent an opportunity to lower the building by about 3 feet. And I'm noting that here in my comments. And
all right.
if it was appropriate to ask a question in comments, I'd say, would you consider lowering the building?
Well, I think that's great. Mr. Gradine?
Yes. Am I allowed to answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can study ways to lower, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else ready for comments? Yes, Ms. Anderson.
Yeah, I'm actually struggling with the style of architecture, like a few board members asked questions about. I understand the precedence on Chapala, but this isn't Chapala. I also understand it's a high density overlay and a priority housing overlay. I think I'm just having trouble with the 3 stories that's abutting Cottage Grove, and I feel like it needs to respond better to its direct neighbors. And I think part of that is also this really tall circulation tower. I do appreciate that it steps back from the front. Again, like you mentioned, you'll study the heights, but I think the heights can be studied better. I don't know if a cottage style would work in a 3 to 4 story building. I think the reason it's called a cottage is because it's smaller. Yeah, so I'm basically just struggling with the style and the height. So.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Anybody else? Mr. Bott?
Yeah, I generally would agree with those comments. You know, I think as it stands architecturally, I think it's a, it's a very handsome building. But I'm, as Ms. Anderson has indicated, I'm too, I'm sort of struggling with the compatibility with the rest of the cottage style on Cottage Grove. I wish I had a better picture of the, I guess, is that a commercial building, like 2 doors to the west? Different size lot, I would assume, but I wish I could see that more in context with a project like this one. And if Mr. Gradin is, open to creating an alternative with a more traditional cottage style, I'd be open to looking at that, certainly. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Mr. Noon?
Sorry.
Excuse me?
I was just wondering if I
Mr.
could respond quickly, very short response.
Sure. Yeah.
That is, I mean, I'd rather not have another board meeting in which we're evaluating what the style should be again.
Yeah.
I think I prefer a much firmer direction. If it's going to go to cottage, we'll go to cottage. If it's going to, if it's not, then it's not.
You haven't heard everybody yet, so.
Yeah, I'm just an overall comment. Sorry.
Good note. Mr. Noon?
Thank you. Board Member 6. I'm probably going to disagree with my other board members. I like the attempt at that they've made at fitting it in the location, and I do think it's successful with the way it's set back, the planting on the first level over the entry. I would struggle with seeing the cottage style. That I do agree with Board Member Anderson that cottage style might be too big in 3 stories, the way it's designed. But I do think it's successful. I would be open to seeing it reduced in height, if that's what the other board members feel. But I'm supportive of the project as it's presented.
Thank you, Mr. Noon.
I have another comment. May I make one more comment, Mr. Six?
Yes, Mr. Olson.
So as to this discussion of going to a cottage style, I think we could probably say that we might be talking about a traditional style, if in fact cottage has to do with small buildings. But I think that we worked with a developer and architect at 825 Delavina, and that building started out being not a traditional building. And when that architect finished that building, I felt we had successfully integrated that architectural style into the neighborhood. And so I would be, as Mr. Gradin has asked, when it comes time to vote on this, I think we should move towards a more traditional style. I would encourage that.
Mr. Olson, by the term traditional, what do you mean, the cottage style or the traditional Spanish style?
No, I would say, I would use 825 Delavina as an example of a traditional style. And I guess if we could merge the 2 terms, it would be cottage traditional.
All right, thank you.
What I'm voting for here or urging for is movement away from the Spanish colonial.
Okay, understand. Thank you. My own comments is I do agree that that when I scan the block, I find that this traditional Spanish is not representative of the block, right? And but I am also very concerned about pushing this. Well, let's back up. The zoning, the powers that be, that I don't think we can do much for, you know, radically reducing the mass, the amount of program that is offered here. And I think we have to live with exceptions of, you know, carving and setbacks and so forth from street, as already been suggested. I don't think we can do much for the overall mass, bulk, and scale. And, you know, with the exception of perhaps lowering finished floors. I do think that this full-on traditional Spanish is not appropriate to the block. I would be very concerned about forcing this mass and this height and proportions into a cottage. I don't think that works, but I do think that some kind of neutral, what I would say neutral architecture, I look at, you know, it's not a good, not a real successful, there's a lot of problems with it, but El Zoco, I would, you know, it doesn't have a particular statement. It's, you know, plain, it's got features of trellis, it's got planar walls, it's got no tile. I think something neutral that doesn't have a definite style. I think this architecture is forcing more mass. The opaque, the need for opaque parapets behind these sloped roofs. You know, the pitches, the solid walls and solid massing that's appropriate to Spanish. I think it's pushing this apparent mass, bulk, and scale to a disadvantage, using the restrictions of the style. So I would go with a more neutral style that you could pick and choose, you know, almost contemporary, where you could begin to enjoy very light, almost transparent balconies at the third floor, where you can, you know, take these heavy mission tiles, sloped roofs off. You can reduce the white plaster and darken areas to have them recede. I do have a question, Mr. Godin. Can you go on your common stair up to the roof? Can you have those last two flights open and then somehow go into and enclose, so you can take that whole mass of that last flight, two flights of stairs, and introduce it into open air? Is that code? Is that a problem code wise?
I think it needs to be a fire rated enclosure, but I haven't really looked into it, but I feel fairly certain that it has to be fire rated.
Oh, I know it does. But there might
especially when you're right adjacent to the property line like that, or near it.
Yeah.
But I can certainly look into it. But I would like more clarity in terms, if there's a alternate style being proposed, I would like more clarity, because right now I'm very confused what you're asking for.
Well, look at the El Zoco, and you see a very plain, simple wall planes and hardly any decoration. And it gives you opportunity to carve things out of it. So,
well, I would call it a Southwest contemporary. But if you're asking us to do something akin to El Zoco, then that helps.
Let's use Southwest contemporary. to where, you can add transparent balconies and perhaps even a unique steep roof flowing over that last flight of stairs going up to the roof, and bring, have no header, bring your, if you have slope roof, bring the slope roofs right down to the close to the header of the windows at the west elevation. Things, I'm saying that, Southwest, if we call the El Zoco the Southwest Contemporary, maybe that language will give you more opportunities to reduce the apparent mass spoken scale. Is that helpful?
Somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah. And well, I know you'll have a vote on that, but that's,
Yeah, we could have a hands up to give you further direction, but Mr. Black?
Thank you.
Well, just a quick comment. So I was taken by the comment that Mr. Olson made about that project that was approved on De La Vina. Obviously there was some inspiration from that large building immediately to the north of it, but that is a street of bungalows, if you will, cottagey sort of homes. And I'm just wondering whether Mr. Gradin would it be appropriate to get any inspiration from that design at all, or am I off base there? More so than El Zoco to me, anyway.
I would agree with Mr. Black.
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the project. Is there any way we can get an image of that somehow? I don't think we can.
That's the one that's on De La Vina, immediately adjacent to Don Sharp's, brick and concrete building. Am I right, Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to remember who the architects were, but.
Yeah, I know. Again, I think that that has a lot of, that's more traditional. I'm thinking almost contemporary here, a neutral, minimal contemporary that doesn't identify itself with any particular style, but its forms and so forth work with the problems that are of mass spoken scale. But
So-
I would be happy to entertain. I would be happy to entertain a suggestion for a straw vote or obviously further discussion on how to help Mr. Gradin proceed with confidence on style. I think that De La Guerra, the De La Vina project had sloped roofs, had a lot of traditional railings and corbels and so forth, but maybe that's the way to go.
But I think it's a very reasonable request, Mr. Gradin, to say, okay, guys, I don't want to do this every 2 weeks and come in with a different style and have you all talk about it. I think it's a very reasonable of him to expect us to have, if we're going to ask him to do something different than what he's done, that we come closer to telling him what we think we might accept.
Yeah, and it's also the responsibility of Mr. Gradin to take our multiple comments and find a style that works. Or a design, not a style, but a design that works.
I think the style does work. I mean, we could certainly simplify it, simplify the detailing, change some parapet heights, bring down the height a bit, change the floor to floor, and make adjustments like that. But completely changing it to another style, I'd like very clear direction about what that's going to be, because I don't want to do the whole 4 elevations again and come back and say, oh, well, a cottage style doesn't really work, you know? So, yeah.
Well, I don't think we're going, and just correct me if I'm wrong, of those people that supported the cottage style. I think we could vote, a show of hand. Well, okay. Let's make straw vote. Would a cottage style with a cottage detailing, pitched roofs, siding, and so forth, be an acceptable solution here? Let's see my hands. All those think that style would work.
So did what you just described there, was that an attempt to describe what was happened at 825 Delavina?
No,
Okay.
it's more of the more traditional cottage style along the street here, along Cottage Grove. Now, let's give, so can we craft a motion to say that, let's see how we do this to help Mr. Kadeen. Okay, let's go and make a vote. Is the proposed design with some reductions in detailing would that be acceptable? Is that enough of a clear question? Anybody reject to that? Anybody reject to that vote as verbalized?
I
Okay,
would
let's
only ask that at some point that you ask also, as you're searching here, to see whether or not there's enough votes to support 825 Delavina as an inspiration to Mr. Gradin's next proposal to us.
That was my next.
Not everyone
next
knows what that
follow.
looks like.
What?
The problem is the chair doesn't even know what that looks like.
I do now, Kirk.
Oh, okay.
I'm very aware of it, yes. I
Okay,
just had trouble locating it.
all right.
So, yes, on minor adjustments and not minor, but appropriate simplification and adjustments to the present design would be acceptable in this. Yeah, raise your hand if you think it would be successful. Mr. Noon? Yes.
Yep.
One. And then finally, we're relying on, let me go back to this. Would a third hands up, would a very contemporary, all parapet, no slope roofs, design be acceptable in this location?
Similar to El Zoco. Is that what you mean, Richard?
Similar, yeah, similar to El Zoco.
Mhm.
All in favor say aye or raise their hands.
Yeah.
Right, and then the final is a design, as Mr. Olson articulated, inspired by the, was it 825 De La Vina?
Yes.
Okay, any of those people acceptable there?
So
So,
I found a rendering of 825 De La Vina on my computer that was published in Ed Hat in June. And 4-story mixed use. And it's got both plaster and horizontal siding, it looks like, and a asphalt shingle roof.
Yeah.
With some detailing in the plaster, but more traditional detailing.
Yeah. I think that's where,
It's
I
nice.
think that's where you spring from, Mr. Gadeen.
Okay.
Is that fair enough? I think that's the best we can serve.
That gives me direction,
That's the
yeah.
best we can serve you. That's the best we can serve you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
All
I
right.
appreciate the effort, the painful effort.
I hope my voice doesn't indicate pain, but
No. It's just that he had a lot of views there and you had to sort through it all. So thank you.
okay. So, let's see. I'm kind of, now that are there any other, let's loop back to any specific, we're gonna make a motion here for let me make a motion for a indefinite continuance back to the full board to, number one, restudy the style and design of the building to be inspired by the example of 825 De La Vina Street, which included a combination of plaster and wood siding, asphalt roofs, some traditional detailing at column caps and railings that would be more successful than the proposed full-on traditional Spanish proposed. That number two, that in using that style, every effort should be made to find languages in that example to reduce the apparent mass and bulk and scale of the project. I'm just going to leave it with that. Now, I need help. Were there any specifics of site planning, massing? Let's before I make the next motion, I know that Ms. Anderson had a concern about the straight up bigness of the front elevation. Did the applicant make that?
Yeah, I guess if they could just study the massing, study the massing over the garage door. Is that clear enough?
Does everybody concur with that?
I don't necessarily concur. However, I'd like to leave that up to the architect.
Yes, I think so.
It'll
I would agree.
change style.
So let's just let number three comment be study the front elevation to I'm just gonna leave it very generous, be sensitive to the 1 and 2 stories along the street. Would that adequately cover it, Ms. Anderson?
Yeah.
We did talk about reducing the height, the potential for that.
The applicant should study any means or study reduction of the finished floor heights. Anything else?
I second it.
Okay. All right, Mr. Moon seconds. So we have a motion on the floor.
That was,
Can we
I
take
did not, sorry to interrupt,
Oh,
Vice Chair.
I opened, I didn't, excuse me, sorry, go ahead.
I did not second that. I'm not sure who that was, but
Oh, Mr. Olson seconded. Okay, excuse me. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All right, we have a motion on the floor.
All right, thank you. I can go ahead and take the roll call vote. I'll start with Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
no.
and Board Member Olson.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Six and Board Member Noon, can we just have a little clarification why you voted no on the motion, just to help the applicant out for the next time they come for review?
Yeah, definitely. I just felt that as it was presented was acceptable. And I didn't feel that it was necessary to redesign, but just try to reduce maybe the height.
Okay,
All right,
thank you very much.
Very helpful, thanks.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I think that completes our last item in the evening. So I
Thank you.
will adjourn the meeting and say goodnight to all. Good night.